This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by SaneBox, the best way to take control of your out-of-control email. For a free trial and a $10 credit, visit sanebox.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac Community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I'm happy to welcome for the first time to MacVoices Justin Williams of Second Gear, the developers of Glassboard, an application that for a long time, I really didn't get. And then earlier this year, I found, along with some friends, found a very specific use case for it and just became really enamored with it. But I'll let Justin tell you more about it. Justin, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And that's not the first time I've heard that description of Glassboard, of people wanting to like it and not having found a use case. It's an interesting but fun problem to kind of solve.
Justin, I think the thing is, in a world where social is so important, social has come to mean share everything with everybody all the time as widely and broadly as you can. And that's not what Glassboard is about.
Right. Yeah. So the general pitch that we give people on Glassboard is that it's antisocial networking in terms of, in a lot of ways, you're creating your own micro-social network. We describe it as kind of being the best way to communicate, collaborate, or coordinate with your people. And that could be either a group of friends. I know a couple of ballet studios that are using it to keep in touch with students and their parents. There's a school in India that's deployed it. A lot of people use it at conferences. Like you mentioned to me that you were using it at CES. I'm going to CocoConf in a couple of weeks, and there's Glassboard set up for that. So there's all kinds of different use cases for it. It's just you need to get your specific group of people on there using it, and then I think a lot of people really start seeing the power and benefits of it, versus everyone seems to have like different services for like Facebook Messenger or Path or Google Hangouts. I've got, I think, 7 or 8 different chat clients on my phone just to keep up with different people on different services. So it's kind of crazy.
You hit it exactly. There was a group of us that attended New Media Expo and CES, and we sort of wanted to keep in touch with each other, talk about, which conference we were in and who was seeing a good speaker and who wasn't, along with the obvious social things of lunch and dinner and all that. And it worked just so amazingly well, and I don't think I ever really considered how nice that would be. We're all used to Twitter and everything, but that goes out to all your followers, and this was just us. And it just became super useful and became the go-to app for the conference.
Yeah, and that's how I came on board with Glassboard as like a user, because we'll probably get into this, but I wasn't the first owner of Glassboard. The Second Gear acquired it recently, but my first foray into using it was several times I would go to Macworld or WWDC, and there would be a Glassboard set up for coordinating after-hours activities, or maybe saying, in the case of WWDC, of, hey, James Dempsey is doing his special Breakpoints concert in this session at 2:30, so you're going to want to go there, or this session is really good, check the videos, this session may not be so good. And then in the past year or so, I've also started using it for, we used to have a pretty decent suite of software that we were selling on the iOS or OS X, and we would keep a Glassboard for every different beta for each product. So we would have, for instance, the Elements beta group, and that would be where we would announce the new releases, let beta testers give feedback to me and to each other, and kind of debate what features we were adding or removing. And we're doing that now with Glassboard as well. Like, we have a pretty active and kind of crazy feedback board called Glassboard Feedback that I set up after the acquisition announcement. And I think it's got like 250 users on it, and every single one of them has an opinion, which is awesome because I get a ton of feedback. But it's also, it's kind of crazy if you've got like 250 people on a board, because it can be a little bit unruly. I never imagined people using it in that kind of case, but it's something that's kind of interesting to see how they're doing it.
I can't help but, I guess, compare it to the forums of old, or the forums really currently that are on a website, and you can go there. But this feels more social. This feels more interactive, I guess, because you don't have to sit down to the computer. It can come right to your phone, and you can reply right from your phone, just like Twitter, just like Facebook. But again, there's just a different vibe about it because it is a closed system.
Yeah, and the message board thing is something I totally did not see when we were doing the acquisition. Like, one of the first projects that we've had was figuring out how people are using this thing, because like I had my own use cases at Second Gear. I had the conference use cases, and I knew a couple of people were using it for family sharing. But one of the big projects has been like interviewing users and figuring out how they're using it. And there's a lot of people using it as message boards. A lot of the interesting one is a lot of these people play these free to play games like Clash of Clans or whatever other ones are out there, and they have their clans or their guilds like will organize on Glassboard. And there's one that has I think 900 people on it, and I'm just baffled by this because 900 people on a board just sounds insane, but they're using it as a replacement for something like PHPBB or whatever message board system is out there on the web these days. And that's something I wasn't aware of. Now that I am, it's shaping a little bit of how I want to improve the service going forward. Not totally. I don't want to be like a full-on message board app. I don't want to be like a full-on replacement for Twitter or Facebook. I'm trying to meet somewhere in the middle because I think there's a lot of interesting areas to explore with that, especially being mobile first. Like we have a web app, but the primary user interfaces we are pushing people on is iOS and Android.
Let's go through the logistics of Glassboard, of setting it up and exactly how it works, because another thing I'm intrigued with, God, the last thing we need is another social network. And yet, here I find myself using one and being kind of excited about using it because it fits a particular need. But what about the back end? How are you powering the back end of this?
So Glassboard is it's C# based. It's a Microsoft. It's using Windows Azure as kind of the back end for everything. And so I'm not a C# developer. When we acquired this, I had to kind of remember all of my C# training that I took, like I think 2 classes in college over. And I'm like, all right, we're going to figure out how to do this again. So it's all C# based. It's deployed to Windows Azure, which I had no experience with before. And it's all just an API that's custom generated and then sends that over to the apps itself. And then we manage all the accounts, all the table storage, all the file storage. It's all handled on Microsoft servers, which is awesome for me because I don't want to be a server admin. And this cloud computing thing, as trendy as that buzzword can be, it's super useful for someone like me who just wants to throw something up on the web and then be able to scale it by like dragging a slider across to say, all right, give me more resources or give me less, or automatically scale this stuff based on how much people are using it. So for instance, like Glassboard's kind of biggest usage time based on kind of like how hard the CPUs are getting hit on the servers is usually around like 11 to 2 Eastern time. And so with Azure, I don't have to like set up and manually deploy servers to deal with that. As I have a script, or I have a like a setting that says, all right, if the servers get above like 90% or 70% or something, go ahead and just set up another instance and it'll automatically clone everything. It'll just start running. And then once it drops below that threshold, then it just disappears again. So I'm a really big fan of doing it that way. It's less work for me. As a small company where I'm the only full-time employee, I have some contractors. The less code I have to write and the less servers I have to manage, the better, because it makes it a lot easier to run the service without kind of going insane and just jumping between 50 different things and trying to set up, like put out so many different fires.
Yeah, and the idea that you were able to create your own social network and have it scale to the degree it needs to, because as Glassboard has become more popular, people like me find use cases for it, and more people are going to find more use cases for it. Like you said about some of the gamers, it's just going to increase the need that you have for that back end.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And like we're doing a lot of the work I've been doing recently has been to improve the back end, just because the first thing, like once we did the acquisition last December, the first project was just to update the app to iOS 7, because like the iOS app, it kind of just sat there and languished while the previous owner, Newsgator, was trying to figure out what they wanted to do, because they couldn't really find a good way to monetize the service. And I think they were shifting their business to a different direction, because Glassboard was kind of a hobby for those guys after they got out of the RSS business. And so the first, like as it sat there and languished, there was a lot of work to do to get it kind of up to my standards, up to second gear standards in terms of like app quality, aesthetics and things like that. So we got the iOS 7 app update out. We're working on the Android update right now. I hired a designer who I'm really big fan of. He does one of my favorite Android apps called Press. Sorry, this is MacVoices, but I do have some Android devices.
That's all right. That's all right.
But if you have an Android, Press is an RSS reader. It is probably my favorite RSS app on any platform, just because it's so ridiculously well done. And I'm really excited to have the guys that were doing that working on our Android app. But like right now, the focus is on improving that backend performance, fixing some bugs on that, and then making it a little bit easier for you to manage your accounts without having to email us or deal with going through the web app itself.
You've said the magic word, monetize. How are you going to keep this going? Because running servers, even though it's getting more affordable, is not cheap.
Right. Yeah. And this has been my I'm calling it an investment right now in terms of Glassboard does lose money. It's losing less money month to month as we've been improving it. One of the first projects was to kind of just try to scale back and cut costs wherever possible, and which is where it made sense without kind of like destroying the service itself. So like one of the things we did is email is one of the biggest things that causes us to have a very large bill each month, because every time you send out an email through your boards, you send, say you're on that 900 person board and you send a reply, then that's going to send out 900 emails. And then the next reply is going to send out another 900. And that just infinitely exponentially scales. So we worked with our email provider to get on a better deal on that. That saves some money. We've been doing some stuff to kind of handle performance a little bit better on the Azure backend stuff, so that servers scale down if they're not using all the resources we need, servers scale up if they do need them. Just kind of being smart about that. And then the big thing that we've been working on is we added an in-app purchase to the iOS app so that you can become a premium member through the app, which I think a lot of people weren't even aware you could pay for Glassboard before, just because there was no mention of it in the app itself. And then we're working on changing those plans in the coming months to be a little bit more attractive, a little bit for different and varied use cases. There's a lot of $25 to me and maybe to you doesn't seem like a lot to pay per year, but in a lot of people's cases, as we've shifted to this kind of 99-cent economy, you have to kind of reevaluate how you want to do that, maybe break that pricing down to month, or have maybe $1 a month plan. So these are the kind of things that we're investigating and figuring out how we can do it sensibly and charge the people that are the power users of Glassboard appropriately, charge the like light users appropriately. And if it's your grandma or someone that has like just comes on your board every now and then to check the photos that you share, then we don't need money from her. It's just, we want people to be able to use the service as much or as little as they want to and be able to support it that way, because Glassboard is completely self-funded. I have zero interest in becoming a venture-backed company because I've worked for those places. I didn't have good experiences with it. And I'm a traditional business guy. Second Gear's been in business for 7 years. And the way that we've always run business is we spend less money than we make. So the only way that Glassboard succeeds is by our customers allowing us to succeed by supporting it. So the goal is to make it so that it is attractive to do that going forward and make people aware that they can do that in a variety of different ways. So it's an exciting thing to do going forward. I'm excited to get the new plans out, see how people react to that stuff, and hope they keep using Glassboard and more people will come and find the service. That's the big thing. It has a decent user base right now, but there's so many more people I think that could enjoy using the service. We just have to tell them why they should use it, how other people are using it, and just get that message out there.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because again, as I said at the top, I really didn't get it. Why I would want to do this. I can share that information with my Twitter followers. And then you realize that the Twitter followers aren't going to want to see every move I'm making at a conference, but my friends are. I mean, it's not going to do my Twitter followers any good to know, hey, this session is great or this session was terrible. But my other friends who are sitting in another session may decide, hey, I'd rather come over to that one, or, here's one you can come to in place of the one that you're not happy with. So it's just a different use case. I was really intrigued by the idea of it being a bulletin board replacement, because that too sets up the opportunity to build yet another community, a micro community around something that's important to you and important to those people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think one of the biggest problems that Glassboard has suffered from, admittedly, is the messaging of it. I think a lot of people were in that situation. If they don't necessarily know how to use it or why they should use it versus the millions of other different networks out there. And that's one of the things we've been really working on, kind of changing that perception and getting it from a lot of people, especially in the developer community, which I'm pretty tied into. Like when I told them that we were acquiring Glassboard, they're like, why are you acquiring the conference app? Why are you acquiring the thing that we use 2 times a year? And I'm like, no, I use this all the time for a variety of different use cases. Like I've got my family board, I've got the beta boards. I know The Core Intuition guys, another great podcast out there. They have a board that they've set up for listener feedback. So anybody that listens to their show can just go on the Core Int board and give feedback on each episode, or maybe request topics going forward. So there's a variety of different use cases for that. Our goal going forward is to highlight those and make people aware of how people are using it and how maybe it could fit into their workflow, because I could give you speeds and feeds and feature lists and all that, but that doesn't really sell products. I think telling people how it can change their life and how it can become an influential part of their life, that's what really gets people on board and excited about using stuff.
This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by SaneBox, the best way to take control of your out-of-control email. For a free trial and $10 credit, visit sanebox.com/MacVoices. Last time, I told you about some of the SaneBoxes I use to manage my email, along with other features of SaneBox that I'm only starting to truly appreciate. Boxes like Sane Archives, a place where your oldest emails go automatically once your SaneBox folders hit 5,000. Clearly, SaneBox is in it for the long haul. And Sane Not Spam. These are the important emails that were rescued from your spam folder. Now this is really cool. If you use this feature, SaneBox constantly monitors your spam folder, takes what it knows about you and about emails in general, pulls anything that looks like it might be legitimate, and drops it in the Sane Not Spam folder for you to review. If you decide it is spam, tell SaneBox it's spam, and SaneBox won't ever make that mistake again. And Sane Black Hole, a folder where email goes and never comes back. If you put email in the Sane Black Hole, it makes sure that any future email from that address will automatically go there, never to darken your inbox again. And Sane Tomorrow, that holds emails until tomorrow, for those things that you just couldn't get to today. And Sane Next Week, that holds your email until Monday, because sometimes we all need that extra day or two to breathe. SaneBox is a full-featured email toolkit, and like a toolkit, you can use all of the options or just pick the ones that work for you, or start with one and apply others as you need them. No matter how you do it, SaneBox will help you whip your email into shape, save you time, and make your life better. Who knows, world peace might be right around the corner. To get started, visit sanebox.com/MacVoices and sign up for a 14-day free trial to find out how great SaneBox is. Then, when it's time to sign up and make SaneBox part of your life on a permanent basis, get a $10 credit at sanebox.com/MacVoices. That's a $10 credit at sanebox.com/MacVoices on the best way to take control of your out-of-control email with SaneBox. Thanks to SaneBox for sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. Would it be fair to compare this, and again, I guess I'm trying to find an analogy so that the viewers and listeners can appreciate it. Is it, you think it's fair to maybe compare it to an email list?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the goal of Glassboard, I would say, is to get stuff out of your email that doesn't need to be there. So I've never been a big email list person because I've always seen people that will show their inbox count, and it'll be 2,000 emails, and I can't fathom ever getting my email to that. I think if I looked at my inbox right now, there's maybe 20 messages in there, and that's high for me. And I think it's because I don't subscribe to email lists. I don't have the time to go through those. And I don't want to have to filter through that to get to the stuff that actually matters in my email. Whereas with Glassboard, that's something that's completely isolated, and it allows me to just go in there. It's all organized by topic. It's threaded so that it's easy to get to each message based on a specific top level topic and then the replies to it. So it's easy to manage on my own time, on my phone, or on my on the web app, which is great. So yeah, I think a replacement for email list is a very good analogy. A replacement for those message boards is another one. It could be anything to anyone in a lot of ways. It's just you have to find kind of which way you want to use it.
Yeah, and and now I know it can be a lot of things to different people. I always get frustrated with those discussions because it's okay, well then I don't even know where to start. And that's why, I think the analogies are good. It does seem to be very much adopted as a conference app, but really any kind of event app that you want to share with your friends. Or I guess you can put these boards out there for kind of public joining. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Glassboard by default is private in terms of, there's a couple of reasons for that. Now, number one, we don't sell your data to advertisers. We don't do any sort of like crazy data analysis on it. We do enough to kind of figure out how people are using it and how long they're using it to kind of like shape stuff, but we're not like trying to figure out like that you're 18 and you're like 18 to 35 males are using it more than anything, because we don't care about that. The goal is mostly just to figure out what features people are using and going forward. The other thing is that each board requires the chairman to actually accept people and invite them to the boards. You can create a public invite code if you want. I know a lot of conferences will do that and put that out there publicly. And I know, I think a couple of those gaming users do that as well. But by default, the invite codes aren't created. And then you just have to like ask the board chairman to accept your membership to that board. But I'm not a big fan of the invite code system right now, just because I think it's confusing to explain, but two, to integrate with. There's a lot of stuff I want to do going forward to make it easier, so that like I don't want to ever have comments on my personal site, because I think that's just asking for spam and kind of craziness. But I think Glassboard is niche enough where it would be awesome if I could have a button on like this on my sidebar that just says, do you want to discuss what we're talking, discuss like the articles on here, then click this button and it'll automatically join a Glassboard for you without having to like type in an invite code or anything like that. I've thought about doing maybe something with QR codes, as kind of gross as those can be. I think there's some use cases where, getting back to the conference thing too, of like, you can either type in this like string of letters and character or numbers, or you can just open the app, tap the capture thing, it'll just shoot that QR code and join the board. So there's a lot of crazy fun work to do on this to make it a lot better, but what's out there right now is I'm really happy with too.
You mentioned a web app. Is that as fully featured as the iOS and the Android app, or is it just sort of there to be able to sit down at my computer and still have access to the same information?
It's fully featured. It's not my favorite app right now. We're working on redoing it. The Glassboard Web App is, I think it was designed because there was a need for it, but at the same time, it wasn't designed with kind of the same care and attention as the mobile apps, because I think that NewsGator by default was a mobile first company with Glassboard. And then like there was a lot of people saying, well, I want to be able to check this stuff on my Mac or my PC or whatever. And so that it made sense to build the thing, but it's not, aesthetically, it's not where I'm happy with. Feature-wise, it's kind of weird. So we're working with a team here in Denver, Colorado to redo that stuff. And it's kind of still in design phases, but it's serviceable right now. There's a lot more we could do with it, especially like adding Safari push notifications so that you can get those on your Mac itself, or if you're on Chrome, using Chrome notifications and stuff like that, and just cleaning it up visually so that it matches kind of the new aesthetics that we've been pushing forward with Glassboard as a brand.
You also mentioned the possibility or probability maybe of premium, becoming a premium member or a premium level. Does that mean that you'd be reducing the feature set for the freemium or free model, or enhancing the feature set for a paid model?
So the goal is to not decrease the feature set. The goal is that what is in there right now is the feature set that anyone can have, because I think if you take away and right now I would say that it's kind of like a core feature set of like, you can create an account, you can create a board, you can post to that board, and then you can reply to things and get notified of those things. That's like core feature set. That's more than enough to be able to kind of figure out if the service is for you. Anything we add going forward, like maybe I think we've talked about doing stuff with like Dropbox integration, so that if you want to be able to share files from your Dropbox into your Glassboard, then theoretically you should be able to support the service by paying $1 or $2 a month for that. Or if you wanted to I think we've debated changing the email so that, one, because it's kind of annoying to get an email every single time that you get a message. I don't want those emails. A lot of my friends didn't. The first things they told me when I created the service was, are you going to disable email by default? And so I don't get like 50,000 emails before like I disable it. And I was like, yes, and I fixed that. But I think the other thing we want to do is kind of make those more of a digest, in terms of like, you don't need an email every 10 seconds that you get a reply. You can chunk those together as maybe every 15 minutes or every hour or whatever it is. But if you want to get those every single email going forward, then theoretically you should be a premium or paying customer, because that helps offset that server cost for us. But there's, pretty much anything that's in there now, we don't want to take those features away. The goal is to add features going forward that are only going to be premium features only. So pretty much anything that we've got on the plate right now is going to be open to premium members and up, just because, one, we want to be able to have people supporting the service, but two, that's just the way it makes sense to do it without doing it the new way of doing it, which is get a bunch of funding and then figure out how to make money later on and you just slam ads into it. I don't want to do it that way.
And that's a relief. That's a huge relief, because I'm seeing more and more apps seeming to go that way. And the ads, while they're not intrusive, they're annoying. And I almost wish they would give me the option to, okay, I'll pay you so much a month, or I'll pay you $25 for the app. If I really love this app and need it and want it, and it serves my purpose, I should be willing to pay for that.
Right. And that's one of those things, too, where I've kind of waffled, too, because like on my personal site, carpeaqua.com, I use carbon ads, and it's just like it's kind of like what John Gruber does on Daring Fireball. It's just like one little ad in the corner, and it's for like one really good service. Like even me, I click on the ads because I find stuff that I find useful, and I've debated putting that on like the Glassboard Web App for like if you're a free customer, that would help offset it. I don't think I would ever put ads in the mobile apps, because I've yet to find mobile ads that I don't just kind of gross out over. But I think there's tasteful ways to do it on the web app. I'm not committed to doing it yet. I'm still trying. My goal is to be able to, hopefully that everyone will want to support the service as much as possible without having to do that. But even if that doesn't happen, there's no way I'm going to get to the point where I'm like slamming Google ads on there or selling data to other people just to kind of like get those metrics. Because I'm designing and building this service how I want it to be, and that stuff grosses me out. I'm not like the hardcore guy that gets rid of his Google account because of the privacy violations. But at the same time, I don't want to do anything where I kind of feel creepy or gross doing it. That's kind of been my metric. Is like, does this make me gross, and would I be mad if someone else did this to me? Yes. All right, then don't do that. No, then all right, I think we're good.
That's a really interesting barometer to go by, because I do it here too. You try to find the things that work for you and for your audience, the ones that you don't object to. I mean, and that may be the best way to do it. If it bothers you, then don't do it.
Right.
If it doesn't bother you, then it probably is okay, and it's going to be okay for your audience.
Right. And one of the first things that we did with that was, like, when we did the acquisition announcement last December, Glassboard Premium was being sold for $50 a year. And it wasn't selling that well at all, which I think is one of the reasons that they wanted to unload it. But to me, I was like, I don't know if I want to spend $50 on this. This is it's a nice service, but I'm not a cheap person, but I'm kind of waffling here. Is this worth $50 a year to me? I'm like, well, what is it worth to me? And I was like, 25 sounds about right. I'd pay $25 a year for Glassboard, and so that's what I lowered the price to. And there was no data or analytics; it was just kind of a hunch, and it paid off because we've sold a lot more premium accounts since we lowered to 25 a year than they ever sold at 50 a year. But like it's one of those things where it's like, it feels good to me to sell it at 25 a year. That sounds like the right price to me, and then kind of go from there to figure out where we go from that.
Well, and Second Gear is not a big company, and I think more and more users are starting to appreciate that these apps come from smaller developers, 1-person, 2-person, 5-person companies, and you got to make some money. You can't just keep giving things away for free.
Yeah, and a lot of time and energy has been spent the past couple of years kind of adjusting to this new paradigm of the app stores and kind of the pricing just dropping like a rock. Because my first foray into software was, I was a Mac developer, and I sold an app called Today, and I sold it I think I was selling it for like $25 a copy, and it was, for something like that today, it would probably sell on the Mac App Store for $5 or $10. On the iOS store, it'd be 99 cents. And that's a big difference, just because like you have to sell more copies to make that up in volume. And a lot of apps don't do that. And there's a lot of developers that are kind of just like struggling, and what they could used to be able to do as a full-time gig, it's not theoretically possible anymore, because they're kind of cutting themselves short, because like it's a niche product, and it's great that you're selling it for 99 cents, but the market isn't going to sustain that long term. And I try not to dwell on that, and there's a lot of developers, I think, that will complain about that and get kind of frustrated with it. I'm at the point now where I was mad and complaining about it 3 years ago. At this point, this is what we're doing. Let's just go ahead, figure out how to work within this model. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and it's just that's what happens when technology changes. But rather, it's a lot more productive and instructive to just go ahead and try to fit within the model versus kind of railing against it and wishing that we could put that genie back in the bottle and go back to the days where I was selling $25 a copy software. It would be awesome if I could, but I'm not really sure how to put genies back in bottles.
Well, there's that, and I think that one of the other problems is that it's tough to convince anybody to drop $25 on an app that they can't try out first.
Right, and that's totally one of the reasons I went with Glassboard, and I was excited about it because we had a couple of products on the iOS App Store, which in 2010 they were doing really well. Like our main product was called Elements, and it was the first of those Dropbox and Markdown syncing text editors. And I sold it for almost 4 years for $5 a copy. And those first couple of years, it was great because it was bringing in more than enough money to support me. Like I wasn't making Flappy Bird money or anything, but I was making enough money to cover my living expenses and work on it full time, which was great. But as kind of that long tail kind of descended off and sales dropped and the app store's paid markets kind of dropped 50% year over year, that became really hard to do. And it's hard to justify continuing to work on products that aren't making any money anymore. And so that's what made me excited about getting back into the services model in terms of I'm able to give away the Glassboard apps for free. There's a free tier where you can go ahead and try it out and see if you like it. And if you want to continue using the service going forward, then it's a nominal fee each month. Or if you want to pay it by the year, please go for it. We'll give you a little bit of a discount if you do. And I think that's going to be the direction that Second Gear is going forward in a lot of ways. I think a lot of developers would be wise to do that if they can. I think obviously there's a lot of products that don't really fit this service model, but there's a lot of different experiments that need to be happening going forward. This is mine. I've kind of put my foot in and saying, let's try services. Let's see if we can get people to pay a couple bucks a month for a service going forward. And it's like you can buy another Twitter client or app.net client for $2, or you can keep using Glassboard for $2 each month.
I think that it's a great model. It's a great experiment. I think people really have to get over this idea of, well, I'm going to just buy it because it's 99 cents, so it's an impulse buy. Take a good hard look at the apps that they really do use. And I don't care if it's 3 apps or 30 or 300. If you really use them and they really make your life better, then you need to support them just like they're supporting you. And if they're not, then erase them from your phone, take them off your Mac, and move on to the next one.
Yeah, and it's a hard problem to solve too, just because again, we get back to how things have changed. And like as mobile kind of grew up and like the venture capitalists got in there and just in a lot of ways they set the tone because they're giving away all these things for free because there's just millions and millions of dollars of VC funding to back it. And to people like you and I, or anyone that's probably listening to MacVoices, they make sense of this. But if you try to like talk to my mom and tell her that the app is like $3, she's like, well, why is this $3 when I can download this, and this for free? And I'm like, well, it's because I'm a small company with no venture capital funding, and I haven't got my seed round, and it's just over her head. She has no idea what I'm talking about. To her, it's just, this is free. This is going to cost me money. I'm not happy about that. Why isn't everything free? So I'm not sure how to get around that other than trying the services thing where you kind of, I don't want to say gamify. Like I think the in-app purchasing and the games and stuff, they're very successful in a lot of devious ways, but I think there's a good idea in there. It's just I think they kind of went off the rails in terms of like if you're using something enough and you hit a pain point, that's the opportunity to kind of upsell someone. I think that's the model we want to go for with Glassboard of like we want anyone that's casually using the app to be able to continue using it and use the existing features as is there. But as we add these new features, if you start hitting those points and you want to start participating with those new features, that's when we want to be able to say, hey, why don't you go ahead and support us with a couple bucks a month or $25 a year or whatever it might be. And then that feels like the right way to go forward because the goal is 1, to get people to pay for it, but 2, to make it such that like you don't really think about $1 or $2 each month, especially if you're buying all these apps. If you're just supporting like, I don't remember what the magazine cost, but I think it was like a couple bucks a month as well. It's the same thing. It's like you're just subscribing to a magazine, except this time you're subscribing to an app going forward that allows you to keep communicating with your people, be it your business folks or family or your group of friends or colleagues.
Right. And at the end of the year, when it's time to renew, if you look back and say, you know what, I really didn't use it, okay, then shut it down.
Exactly.
It's easy. How many boards can you participate on in Glassboard?
Participation right now is you can participate in as many as you want. You can create up to 3 boards. So if you want to try it out, we figure by default when you sign up for an account, it creates what would be called Chuck's board, and then you can kind of invite people into that if you wanted to, or you can just go ahead. A lot of people just will create an account just to join an existing board. So there's no limits on terms of like how many people can join a board right now. That's something we're kind of toying with, because like getting back to the case of like the 900 person board, that's a little bit excessive in terms of, because I'm pretty sure none of those folks are paying for it. And which is great that they're using it. I'm excited that they're passionate about it. But at the same time, it's like, can you guys chip in a couple bucks for the servers?
Right.
So we're reserving the right to tweak that a little bit to kind of like deal with like those crazy edge cases. But yeah, there's no limits in terms of like how many boards you can join or anything like that. If you want to create more than 3 boards, then we offer premium plans. But then any of those boards, you get the features of being able to like create posts, upload photos or videos, reply to posts, set your own avatar, and all those sorts of things.
I don't know. I wish a lot of developers would listen to this conversation, because I think you've thought it out well. You've got the right idea. The options are not intrusive. Your pain point example is great. If you really need this feature, then okay, it's time to kick in a couple bucks and get the feature. If you can do without it, then fine, stay at that level.
Yeah, and then we spent a lot of time debating how to do this going forward, and it's just, this seemed like the right way to do it. Like, we could have just gone ahead and said, all right, if you want to use Glassboard, then you've got to pay $10 a year or something, and anyone that doesn't pay $10 a year, you're out of here. But I think that would do more to stifle the growth of the service than anything, because, like, for instance, let's say like you only go to your conference in January to CES and the other one once a year, and you just use it casually that one time. It feels wrong to me to try to like gouge $10 out of you just for like the fact that you're going to use it for 5 days. Like, and if I do something like that, then people aren't going to choose Glassboard for these sorts of services. I'd rather the passionate people that are supporting the services get people to try it out using it for those examples, because hopefully then they're going to be able to see, hey, this worked really well in this situation. I wonder if I can use it for this, or maybe I can use it for my book club, or I can use it for my podcast, or whatever it is. And that's the goal of being able to like have like the free model in there that gives you kind of that base functionality, but then add any future more advanced power user features as a cost-based.
Well, this is one of the few models that kind of gets around that trial thing, that I this way I can try it for free and I can use it for free in a limited fashion, and as opposed to just saying, okay, you want $25 for it. I don't know if I'll ever use it that much. Well, I find out I do use it, and maybe use it even more, and want to become that premium subscriber.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too, is I wrote a post a couple months ago, because it seems like every year we get around to developers writing the post about how they wish that Apple should add trials to the App Store, and like it's totally horrible that they haven't, and this is why they should do it, and this is the problems that it causes. And it's like I'm experiencing Groundhog Day every year, because I'm reading the exact same post each year. And I was just like, guys, the App Store has been out since I think 2008. If Apple was interested in adding trials, they would have done it by now. It's obvious that's not the direction they're going. So rather than kind of like long for the past and the ways it used to be, why don't we focus on trying different ways and just experimenting? And yeah, some of these experiments are going to fail miserably. I've tried more than a few different ways to kind of monetize that haven't worked out. It's just trial and error. It's figuring out what works in this new model. Focusing on the ways things used to be, that doesn't get you anywhere, because if we did that, I'd still be sending off checks to get shareware CDs of Doom, which I did way back in the 90s. But we're not doing that anymore, and that's a good thing, because we shifted to that mantra of selling software through your own online stores, and then selling it through services like FastSpring or eCellerate or whatever it is, and then it transitioned to the app stores, and that's the way things happen. As technologists, we should be completely adept in understanding that things will change and kind of go with it. You don't want to like be complacent and longing for the old ways. Like, yeah, it sucks in a lot of ways, because the old way was great, but let's focus on how we can keep doing what we're doing in the new models and keep ourselves current and going forward.
I think you should have about a dozen T-shirts printed up with all those sayings on them, because you're absolutely right, and it is frustrating as a consumer and as someone who observes this stuff, to see the number of people that don't want to change with the times. And I'm sure I do it too. I guess we all do it. There's
me too. I totally will. Like, I feel gross every now and then when because I'll think like, oh, this app is $5 or $10, and I'm like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what is wrong with me? And I was because I'm just like, yeah, I've adapted to this way too, because like, I can't complain if this is the same way as a consumer that I'm behaving, because that's just the way we've been integrated to do it with these mobile apps. And that's fine. It's like, I think Apple sees software and apps as like a commodity in the same way that a song is. Like, you buy a song and you own the song, and you buy a copy of a movie and you quote unquote license that movie. But for all intents and purposes, if you buy it, it's on your Apple TV forever. And I think that's the same way they're doing it with the App Store. So you don't get upgrade pricing if you buy Back to the Future 2 if you already bought Back to the Future. So I think that's the same way that we're kind of existing in this. But it does offer a lot of interesting challenges. I wrote a post the other day about one of the challenges I've been facing recently is dealing with support. In terms of like, Second Gear's always kind of prided itself in having like pretty good customer support, and we outsourced that to one of my buddies runs a company called AppFolk, and it's him and a couple other guys. And what they do is, for small developers like me, they'll go in there and they'll handle kind of like the low hanging fruit of our support emails, of like the stuff that's asked all the time, like, hey, how do I do this, or does this have this feature, or this isn't working for me, or things like that. So that instead I can focus on actually working on the apps itself. This has always worked because I've had software that's actually for sale. Now that I'm doing freemium, it's costing me money on a substantial level in terms of how do I support these customers that aren't necessarily paying for the service, and each time that they're emailing me, that is a loss. And it was kind of like, the post is not necessarily like decrying like this is a horrible thing. It was more like, this is kind of my thought process of like, this is how it's happening. These are kind of the options I have going forward. These are some of the things I'm doing. Like, I'm trying to like automate some stuff so that the less that people have to actually email us and they can like do self-service support, that's good. And that's great, because that's not costing me an hourly fee with my guys, or it's not taking up my time to actually answer that. And if it's something like changing your email address or deleting an account, or just figuring out a question, like having a knowledge base on there that can deal with that stuff, that's a good line of defense to kind of counteract that.
And people, I think, are getting more and more comfortable with some of that self-serve. They've realized that that's something they need to do. And frankly, it's easier for them because maybe they can get their answer right there, right then, and move on instead of having to wait 2 hours or 24 hours or 2 weeks to get a reply back. So
yeah, and that's one of those things too where I'm trying to feel out how I want to do it, because like recently I ran into an issue where my Twitter name is Justin, which is awesome. My Instagram name is Justin, which is awesome, except when you realize that there's a teen pop star that has the name Justin, which makes some services not as enjoyable. So what happened, though, was my Instagram account got disabled. Like, Instagram disabled it as like this sweep, because apparently they thought I was a fake Justin Bieber or something, because I look like a pop star. And so what happened was, I'm like, I didn't violate any of your terms of service. All I do is kind of post pictures of cats in Denver. Like, it's like, I'm not trying to like pass myself off as anyone else. And so like, I went on the Instagram site and I'm trying to find like, how do I fix this? And it was a frustrating self-support thing in terms of like, they didn't have the answer I had, but then they didn't have a good way for me to get in touch with them. And so I had like, I always feel gross when I have to like pull favors and like say like, hey, does anyone know anyone at Instagram and they can help me out with my like little situation? But it was the only option I had. And so I think like being able to have that self-service stuff is kind of like that first level of like, hey, does this answer your question? Yes. Awesome. Then we've taken care of you. Or no, then well, here, email us and let's figure it out, versus kind of just like making it so that someone has to then go on Twitter or Facebook or whatever and just like shout to the masses to see if they can get their problem solved.
So where is the best place to go to send folks? I mean, obviously, Glassboard is in the App Store, and you can read everything there. Do you have any better way or alternate way for them to learn about what this is and what it can do for them?
So we're working on a new website right now at glassboard.com, which should be up in a couple of weeks, I think. Right now, it's pretty good. it's a good introduction of what it can do in terms of features. The new website is going to be a lot more about explaining how people are using it and how they can use it and fit into their lifestyles. But yeah, glassboard.com will take you to, you can sign up for an account there. You can download the Android app, you can download the iOS app, and you can kind of just go from there. But yeah, please try it out. More feedback, the barrier. We're still at the point where we're trying to grow the service and get as much feedback and learn how people are using it or want to use it as we can, as we're kind of shaping it going forward. We're in this for the long haul. I think this is the second or third month we've been at it, and it's been a crazy fun ride thus far. I'm kind of amazed how much we've gotten done already, especially since it's just me doing all the coding and then outsourcing everything else. I probably have bags under my eyes right now, which is not good, but yeah, it's fun. It's really exciting. I haven't been this excited about doing something new in quite a while, so I hope people will support it and check it out.
And I hope people will support it and check it out too. And most importantly, check it out. It's going to take you just a little while to understand what it's good for, but I don't know. We've used the mailing list. We've used the posting board examples. There are a lot of examples out there, but test it out, try it out, and I think that you're going to find that it could be very, very useful for you, your business, your social activities, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Justin, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me anytime.
Yeah, we'll look forward to new and more products from Second Gear.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Please check the show notes to follow me on Twitter, to follow Justin and find out everything he's doing, and of course to check out Glassboard. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date with all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.